Hi, Dr. Reagan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
There's so many dentists that we see on the different Facebook groups and everything else that I opened my office 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I'm struggling and I'm really having trouble. And, some of those, probably should have worked and learned a little bit more about dentistry before they did that.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Bruce B. Baird, and you're listening to the Productive Dentist Podcast. In this podcast, I will give you everything that I've learned over the last 40 years in dentistry, working with thousands of dentists. I'll tell you, it's not that my way is the only way. It's just one that has worked extremely well for me, and I'd love to share that with you so you too can enjoy the choices and lifestyle that productivity allows. More time for things you love, increased pay, better team relationships, and lowered stress. Let's get into it with this week's episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast.
Hi, this is Dr. Bruce Baird with the Productive Dentist Podcast. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about, I've had several questions about, what would be the best strategy for me if I wanted to open up my own dental practice, my own office? And, there's many different thoughts about that. Some say, how do I start? One question was, can I just start as a fee-for-service practice? Would that be possible? Do I need to sign up for PPOs when I first get started? And those are all, really great questions. And it really depends on who you are, where you're located, and what type of ultimate practice that you want to have. What's your financial situation? Are you going to go to a bank for financing? Do you have some revenue that you put aside over maybe you're 8 years out of dental school and you've been working in other offices as an associate? Those are all the things to look at. So I'll try to break it out. If you're coming right out of dental school, my suggestion is, and again, it depends. I've seen some young dentists coming out of dental school that could open up their own practice. I would say that's probably 5%ers, maybe 5 out of 100 dentists that come out of dental school could open up their own practice and do well. What about the other 95%? Well, I myself personally, I was very comfortable doing the dentistry when I came out of dental school. This is back 44 years ago, but we got to do all the kinds of extractions, endo, periosurgeries. We were very well versed. But as someone coming out in the last few years, COVID affected your education. Some of you have done very few extractions. Some have done very few, any types of restorations, because of COVID. And so for somebody like that, I would say, hey, I went in the military for 4 years. I learned so much. It was amazing. I had very little pressure because I was in the service. I was only making $28,000 a year as a captain back in 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84. But I learned enough. It was my education. It was watching other dentists, watching other specialists do things that really helped me. And then when it came time for me to open up my own practice, I still didn't have any money. Had to go get 100% bank financing. And so I went forward and that's what I did. And I felt very comfortable. Now, having said that, I didn't struggle from the financial standpoint early on in my career. I was just working my ass off. I mean, I was literally working 65 hours a week when I got out. Now, and you guys have read, listened to the podcast before, and I've said, gosh, it cost me a marriage, because I was just so involved and totally consumed by the practice. I probably wouldn't go back and do it the exact same way, although I learned so much and it turned out fine because I'm pretty much, I'm very stubborn, and I wanted to have what I considered to be an ideal practice. And we continued. It just took us a lot longer than I thought. I think I could have taken more business courses, had a better understanding of the world of business before I just decided to open up a practice. However, how did I open up that practice? Well, I did what's called a 504 debenture with the SBA. Why? Because I couldn't get a bank to loan me money. Now today, banks will loan you money if you got a dental degree, and they'll loan you the money to buy a practice. They'll loan you money to build a practice. It's just you've got to be ready for it. And there's so many dentists that we see on the different Facebook groups and everything else that I opened my office 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I'm struggling and I'm really having trouble. And, some of those, probably should have worked and learned a little bit more about dentistry before they did that. But, everybody has their own ideas about what they want to do. And I've seen lots of young dental entrepreneurs that are ready to go in and open up their own practice. If I had to do it again over today, I might go the SBA route again. Why? Because, you can do things now with SBA with 10% down if you had saved some money. And those, the SBA will loan you the money, and you can start your business and start your practice and buy your equipment and do everything from the ground up, whether you're buying a lease space or whether you're building a new facility. I probably would go with the lease space first, build your base of patients. Would I do that with a PPO, using PPOs? Gosh, there weren't no such thing as PPOs back in the early 80s. So I was a fee for service. Well, what did I do? Well, I started my own plan, my own plan, like, everybody's doing now, a discount plan for patients to come in. And I did it myself. I went around this town. I started offering 20% off my fees to the nuclear power plant, to some large employers in town, and handing them brochures and everything else. I was committed, 100% committed, because we didn't have PPOs we could sign up and give away 40% of our fees to the PPOs. So would I start out that way? Well, you've got two options. One is you could have, sign up with all the PPOs you can, and I would understand that. I would understand, okay, I got to have patients in here. I've got to make some money somehow, some way to get this done. On the other hand, if you were able to get good financing or good funding, or you had some backing, that you could begin marketing from the get-go, and also have the energy and the willpower to go out and to meet people in the community and to offer discounts. When I say discounts, it's like your standard, plan that you would have, in-office plan that is becoming very popular now. I did it 44 years ago or 40 years ago, and it was popular then. It's just no one else was doing it. So it was kind of, I had my own unique identity, and I was able to do that. But if I did decide I did not have a lot of financial backing, I didn't have a lot of money behind me, but I still was able to get funding and financing, but I just didn't have a lot to use for marketing and everything else, I wouldn't mind. I'd sign up for the PPOs, even knowing that there was a 40% to 50% discount on my fees. Why? Because I want to have cash flow. I want to have money coming into the business. Now, at that point in time, from the get-go, I would set aside 8% of my budget. Now, 8% of your budget is a lot of money if you think about it. 8% of your collections, the previous month's collections. So if you collected $50,000, that's $4,000 a month. And that first couple of years that I had the PPOs and I had signed up for them, money was coming in, whatever was collectible, I'm going to spend 8% of that on what? Well, if I'm new out of school, I'm going to spend that 8% on continuing education to go to the best courses on implants, the best courses on all of those things, from doing aesthetic dentistry to doing ortho, to do, all the different things that you want to learn to do better or that you enjoy doing. Those are the things that I would focus on. I would go to see John Coyce. I would go spend the time and the revenue to go do that. Why? Because I want to learn how to do dentistry at a much higher level. And once I'm able to do dentistry at a higher level, I start to see more. We only see what we know. And when I go to courses, I walk out of there going, wow, I never looked at that again the same way. And so I would say, yeah, if you're early out of school, having revenue come in, great. You don't have a lot of financial backing. Signing up for the PPOs is fine, but you got to have a plan to get off of those. Why? Because you can't run your business with a 40% discount and not make money and not create a life that you really want. But the first 3 or 4 years, yeah, that's fine. Now, if you've got 8 years out of school, you've already had your education and everything else, you've put a little bit of money away, what would I do? I would 100% go for high tech, high touch. I would go to the bank, I would get the money, and I would have marketing as a part of my business. Yes, and I would be marketing at 8%, just like we did at Granbury Dental Center as we went along. Doing 100,000, we had an 8,000 budget. 200,000, we had $16,000 marketing budget. And so instead of having some marketing company, which that's all a PPO is, it's a marketing company. It's not an insurance. So I think you're aware of that. But no, I would say take 8% of my budget, and I mean 8%. You go back and look at Granbury Dental Center's numbers for years, it was exactly 8%. If I collected $100,000 in January, in February, I marketed $8,000. And as it grew, our reach grew bigger and bigger. And our marketing targeted exactly what it was that we wanted to do, which for me was train wrecks. I've told you guys that before. Might be implants, might be whatever you like. It could be sleep dentistry. It could be, you get to market and bring people into your business that need the things that you love to do. So, and PPOs, most of those people are going to be under 45 and they don't need a lot of dentistry. And so now you're seeing a jillion of them trying to make a buck. And so the strategy being, get your education. If you're not been out of school for a while and you don't have the experience, it's okay, sign up for the PPOs, but have the strategy that says, I'm going to spend 8% of my budget for learning, for, going out and going to the best places, the Coyces, the Spirit, go out and learn. And on the flip side, you feel good, start out with a fee for service practice. I would highly recommend it. You're going to be so much more profitable. Plus you're going to enjoy your life better. A lot of the associates, they're stuck into a business that is built on this PPO model that you got to do 60% more work than somebody who is doing a fee for service model. And, you're not making any more money. So, again, these are, there's so many different answers. There's so many different ways of looking at this. If you have, your own personal question about this that you're thinking about doing, send me an email to bruce@productivedentist.com. I'll be more than happy to do a podcast on it, and we'll talk about it on the podcast, and I'll send you back an email saying, hey, I'm doing a podcast on it. It's coming out here in a few weeks. So feel free to do that. I'm really looking forward to talking more about this process. That strategy when you have the PPOs, yes, it's okay to have it for the first 3 or 4 years. Get your education, and then have a strategy to get off the PPOs. What you do not want to do is be 15 years into dentistry, 20 years into dentistry, still taking a 40% discount. That's the number one overhead item now in dentistry is PPO write-offs. Give me a break. They're a marketing company. It's not insurance. What you want to do is market to older patients who need the dentistry that you love to do. And anyway, Hope this has been good for you. Again, thank you so much for voting the Productive Dentist Podcast as the #1 podcast in dentistry. And I look forward to our next time.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, make sure you subscribe. Pass it along to a friend. Give us a like on iTunes and Spotify, or drop me an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. Don't forget to check out other podcasts from the Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentistpodcast.com. Join me again next week for another episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast.